There is a truth so uncomfortable that most people spend their entire lives running away from it. A truth that shatters excuses, silences complaints, and exposes the real enemy. That truth is this: before you can conquer anything outside of you, power, wealth, influence, respect, success, you must first conquer yourself. Most people believe their greatest obstacles are external. They blame governments, systems, family, enemies, lack of opportunity, or fate. But history tells a far more brutal story. Empires did not fall because of enemies alone. They collapsed because of internal weakness. And individuals are no different. This idea, often linked to the strategic thinking of Niccolò Machiavelli, is not about motivation. It is not about positivity. It is not about comfort. It is about power through self-mastery. In this video, we will explore why self-conquest is the foundation of all dominance, how your emotions secretly control your destiny, why discipline is more powerful than talent, how most people lose life before life even begins, and how mastering yourself positions you to master your world. This is not content for the lazy mind. This is for those who are ready to hear the truth. Stay with me. The war you don't see. Why self-conquest comes before worldly power. Most people believe life defeats them. They say the world is unfair. They say the system is broken. They say enemies, circumstances, or bad luck ruin their chances. But that belief is itself a lie, because long before the world ever touches you, you are already at war. Not with society, not with other people, but with yourself. This is the war nobody prepares you for, the war nobody warns you about, the war that decides your future long before success or failure becomes visible. Every human being wakes up daily with two forces pulling in opposite directions. One force wants comfort, the other wants growth. One wants ease, the other wants progress. One wants safety, the other wants power. And the outcome of your life depends on which force you obey. This is what philosophers and strategists understood long ago, especially thinkers like Machiavelli, who studied power not as an ideal, but as a reality. Machiavelli did not ask how humans should behave, he asked how they actually behave. And what he observed was simple, but disturbing. Human beings are inconsistent, emotionally unstable, easily distracted, driven more by fear and desire than reason. If this is true of societies, it is even more dangerous at the level of the individual. Because a person who cannot control their inner world will never control their external world. The first enemy is not outside you. When people fail, they often look outward for the cause. They blame the economy. They blame leaders. They blame family background. They blame betrayal, witchcraft, enemies, or fate. But these explanations are comforting lies. The harsh truth is this: most people lose their lives before life ever tests them. They lose in their minds. They lose in their habits. They lose in their emotions. Before opportunity arrives, they are already unprepared. Before responsibility comes, they are already undisciplined. Before power appears, they are already corrupted by weakness. Self-conquest is about recognizing this uncomfortable reality. You are both the soldier and the battlefield. Your thoughts can either sharpen you or weaken you. Your habits can either build you or destroy you. Your emotions can either serve you or enslave you. And the tragedy is that most people never realize they are enslaved. Invisible chains. How people lose control without noticing. Control is rarely taken by force. It is surrendered slowly. You surrender control the first time you say, "I'll do it later." You surrender control when discomfort makes you quit. You surrender control when emotion overrides logic. You surrender control when pleasure becomes more important than progress. Over time, these small surrenders become a lifestyle. You wake up when you feel like it. You work only when motivated. You speak only when comfortable. You avoid pressure. You escape responsibility. And without realizing it, you become predictable. In strategic thinking, predictability is weakness. Anyone who can predict your reactions can manipulate your decisions. If anger controls you, you can be provoked. If desire controls you, you can be tempted. If fear controls you, you can be threatened. This is why self-conquest is the foundation of power, not because power is evil, but because lack of self-control guarantees vulnerability. Why most people never conquer themselves. Self-conquest is difficult because it demands something rare: honesty without mercy. You must look at yourself and admit, you are not as disciplined as you think, you are not as focused as you claim, you are not as committed as your words suggest. Most people avoid this moment. They prefer motivational quotes, they prefer blaming others, they prefer spiritual bypassing and fake positivity. But Machiavelli realism cuts through illusions. It says, you are responsible for your condition,
not your parents, not society, not enemies, you. This truth offends the weak-minded, but it empowers the disciplined, because once responsibility is accepted, control becomes possible. The difference between self-mastery and self-destruction. Every habit is a vote. Every decision is a direction. Every moment of self-control strengthens you. Every moment of indulgence weakens you. This is not morality, this is mechanics. A person who cannot delay gratification cannot plan long-term. A person who cannot endure discomfort cannot achieve dominance. A person who cannot silence emotion cannot think strategically. This is why many intelligent people remain powerless while disciplined individuals rise. Self-conquest is not about denying pleasure forever. It is about deciding who is in command. Is it your impulses or your purpose? The moment self-conquest begins. Self-conquest does not begin with motivation. It begins with decision. The decision to act even when you don't feel like it. Think before you react. Choose discipline over comfort. Accept discomfort as the price of growth. This decision separates those who remain spectators from those who become players in the world. Until you conquer yourself, every external victory will be temporary. But once you conquer yourself, even failure becomes a lesson, not a defeat. Before anyone in history conquered cities, nations, or empires, they first conquered their fear, their impulses, and their weaknesses. The war you don't see is the war that decides everything, and if you lose that war, no external success will ever save you. This is Truth 001, and this is only the beginning.
Emotion, the invisible master controlling most lives. Most people believe they are free. They believe they choose their actions. They believe they think independently. They believe their decisions are rational. But this belief collapses the moment emotion enters the room. Because emotion does not ask for permission, it commands. And unless you have mastered yourself, you obey. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths ever discovered about human nature, a truth that thinkers like Nietzsche understood deeply, even if they did not express it softly. Human beings are not ruled by reason, they are ruled by feeling, and reason often arrives afterward, not to decide, but to justify. Emotion does not inform, it dominates. Emotion is powerful because it feels real. Fear feels urgent. Anger feels justified. Desire feels necessary. Ego feels protective. But emotion does not care about your long-term future. Fear wants safety now. Anger wants release now. Desire wants satisfaction now. And anything that demands now is hostile to strategy. This is why emotionally driven people struggle to build anything lasting. They quit when motivation fades. They speak when silence would serve them. They react when patience would give them advantage. Emotion narrows your vision. It shrinks time. It traps you in the present moment. Power, however, belongs to those who can think beyond the moment. The emotionally controlled human is easy to manipulate. Control does not always come from force. Often it comes from triggering emotion. Make a man angry, and he will destroy himself. Make him fearful, and he will surrender his power. Make him desperate, and he will accept bad deals. Make him crave approval, and he will betray his own interests. This is not theory, this is reality. Entire political systems, marketing strategies, and social movements are built on emotional manipulation. If others can predict what makes you angry, they can steer your behavior. If others know what you fear, they can control your choices. If others understand your desires, they can sell you illusions. The person ruled by emotion is not sovereign, they are governed. Why most people defend their emotional weakness? Here is where self-deception appears again. When confronted with emotional weakness, people say, "That's just how I am. I'm passionate, I'm expressive, I can't hide my feelings." But this is not honesty, it is resistance to discipline. Emotion is not the problem, lack of command is the problem. A disciplined individual still feels anger, but does not obey it. They still feel fear, but do not surrender to it. They still feel desire, but do not let it rush their decisions. This is the difference between a child and a strategist. The child feels and reacts. The strategist feels, observes, and chooses. Emotional reaction is a loss of position. Every time you react emotionally, you give something away. You give away information, composure, authority, leverage. When you explode in anger, others learn your trigger. When you beg for validation, others sense your insecurity. When rejection breaks you, others see your dependence. Silence, on the other hand, confuses manipulators. Calm unsettles aggressors. Patience frustrates those who want to rush you. This is why emotional discipline is feared, because a person who cannot be provoked
cannot be controlled. The cost of emotional slavery. Let us speak plainly. How many opportunities have been lost because of emotion? Jobs ruined by pride, relationships destroyed by uncontrolled anger, dreams abandoned because fear whispered, "You're not enough." Emotion convinces you that temporary discomfort is permanent danger. So you avoid, you retreat, you compromise your future. And slowly, your life becomes smaller. Not because the world defeated you, but because emotion restricted your range. Mastering emotion is not suppression, it is superiority. Many misunderstand emotional mastery. They think it means becoming cold, heartless, or robotic. That is false. True mastery means you decide when emotion speaks. You allow emotion to inform you, not command you. You feel deeply, but you act deliberately. This is the position of power. Machiavellian realism does not demand emotional absence, it demands emotional containment. The strongest individuals in history were not emotionless, they were emotionally disciplined. They could endure insult without retaliation, delay gratification without resentment, absorb pressure without collapse. This endurance created distance between stimulus and response. And in that distance, power lives. The practice of emotional command. Emotional command begins with one habit. Pause. Pause before speaking, pause before reacting, pause before deciding. That pause is resistance training for the mind. In that pause, ask, what is the smartest response? What serves my long-term position? What reaction gives me advantage? At first, this feels unnatural, because weakness always resists discipline. But over time, something changes. You stop being reactive. You stop being predictable. You stop being emotionally exploitable. And people sense it. They become cautious around you. They hesitate before provoking you. They cannot read you easily. That is not intimidation, that is presence. Emotion is a powerful servant and a catastrophic master. If emotion rules you, you will always fight the wrong battles at the wrong time for the wrong reasons. But when you conquer emotion, you gain clarity, you gain patience, you gain strategic depth. And with that, you move one step closer to conquering your world. This is truth 001. And the next truth is even heavier.
Discipline, the brutal path to true freedom. There is a lie that has been sold to modern humanity. A lie so attractive that people defend it passionately. The lie is this: freedom means doing whatever you feel like doing. But this belief has quietly destroyed more lives than poverty, enemies, or bad luck ever could. Because what people call freedom is often just undisciplined indulgence. And indulgence does not free you, it weakens you. True freedom is not the absence of rules, it is the presence of self-command. This is a truth that realists and strategists, like Machiavelli, understood without romance or illusion. Power is never built on comfort, it is built on discipline. Discipline is not punishment, it is structure. Most people hate discipline because they misunderstand it. They think discipline is suffering, restriction, self-denial, loss of joy. But discipline is none of these by nature. Discipline is structure. It is the framework that keeps chaos from ruling your life. Without structure, your sleep becomes inconsistent, your work becomes unreliable, your goals become optional, your word loses weight. You begin to live according to mood, and mood is unstable. A life built on mood collapses under pressure. Discipline, on the other hand, does not care how you feel. It asks only one question: what must be done? The disciplined person lives ahead of time. Undisciplined people live in the present. They eat for today, they spend for today, they react for today. The disciplined individual lives in the future. They sacrifice now to dominate later. They endure discomfort now to avoid suffering later. They train now so they don't panic when pressure arrives. This is why discipline looks boring to the weak-minded, because the rewards are delayed, and delayed reward terrifies people who lack self-control. Machiavelli realism is clear on this. Those who think long-term outmaneuver those who think emotionally. Discipline stretches your time horizon. It allows you to plan, endure, and execute while others are distracted. Talent bows to discipline. One of the most painful truths in life is this: discipline will always defeat talent in the long run. Talent is potential, discipline is execution. Talent waits for inspiration, discipline works regardless.
Talent seeks recognition, discipline seeks results. History is full of gifted people who never became powerful because they lacked consistency, and it is full of average individuals who rose to dominance because they were relentless. Discipline compounds. A small daily effort, repeated without negotiation, becomes unstoppable. This is why disciplined individuals are feared quietly. They are not loud, they are not flashy, they are inevitable. Why discipline feels painful at first? Discipline feels painful because it threatens an internal enemy. That enemy is comfort addiction. Your mind is used to quick pleasure, easy escapes, instant gratification, minimal resistance. Discipline disrupts this pattern. It introduces delayed reward, mental resistance, physical discomfort, emotional restraint, and your mind fights back. It whispers, "Rest a little. You deserve a break. You can do it tomorrow. This is too much." These whispers are not wisdom. They are withdrawal symptoms. Comfort resists discipline the same way weakness resists strength. But every time you act despite resistance, you weaken the voice of comfort and strengthen the voice of command. Discipline builds self-respect. Here is something rarely discussed. Self-esteem does not come from affirmations. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Each time you say, "I will wake up early," and you do. "I will finish this task," and you do. "I will control my reaction," and you do. You build internal trust. You begin to respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, others feel it. Your words carry weight. Your presence becomes firm. Your boundaries harden. People may not know why, but they sense that you are not weak. That sense is power. The disciplined person cannot be easily controlled. Control thrives on weakness. A person addicted to comfort can be bribed. A person ruled by pleasure can be distracted. A person afraid of discomfort can be threatened. Discipline removes these pressure points. When you can endure hunger, fatigue, boredom, repetition, delay, you become difficult to manipulate. You stop needing approval. You stop chasing validation. You stop folding under pressure. This is why discipline is dangerous to systems built on dependency. A disciplined individual is self-governing, and self-governing people are hard to rule. Discipline is chosen daily or lost daily. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a daily decision. You either choose order or chaos chooses for you. You either impose structure or life imposes consequences. There is no neutral position. Every day you wake up, you vote for the person you are becoming. Discipline today is power tomorrow. Indulgence today is weakness later. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not celebrated. It is not applauded early. But it is respected eventually. Because discipline creates people who cannot be shaken, cannot be rushed, and cannot be broken easily. And once you reach that state, the world begins to respond differently to you. This is truth 001. And the next truth will be uncomfortable. Self-deception, the most dangerous enemy within. There is an enemy more destructive than fear, more subtle than laziness, more dangerous than external opposition. That enemy is self-deception. Self-deception is not lying to others. It is lying to yourself and believing the lie. This is the enemy that keeps people weak while convincing them they are trying. It allows failure to feel justified. It allows stagnation to feel temporary. It allows potential to die quietly without resistance. Thinkers grounded in realism, like Machiavelli, understood something most people refuse to accept. Human beings do not naturally seek truth. They seek comfort. And self-deception is comfort in its most refined form. How self-deception disguises itself as reason. Self-deception rarely announces itself openly. It wears masks. It sounds reasonable. It sounds intelligent. It even sounds responsible. "I'm still learning. I need more information. It's not the right time. I don't want to rush. I'm being patient." But behind these words is often a refusal to act. Learning becomes avoidance. Planning becomes procrastination. Patience becomes fear. Self-deception allows you to feel productive while doing nothing that risks failure. And because no risk is taken, no growth occurs. This is how lives stall without obvious collapse. The ego's need to protect its image. At the center of self-deception is the ego. The ego does not care about truth. It cares about image. It wants to see itself as capable, intelligent, moral, and deserving, even when evidence disagrees. So when reality threatens that image, the ego rewrites the story. Failure becomes bad timing. Weakness becomes personality. Indiscipline becomes self-care. Fear becomes intuition. This protects self-esteem, but destroys self-respect. Because deep down, you know when you are lying to yourself, and every unchallenged lie weakens your inner authority. Why self-deception is more dangerous than failure? Failure is honest. It tells you, this did not work. Self-deception says, this would have worked if. Failure creates feedback. Self-deception creates stagnation. A person who fails and reflects can grow powerful. A person who deceives themselves remains stuck indefinitely. Machiavelli realism respects failure. It distrusts illusion. Because illusion blinds strategy. You cannot adapt to reality if you refuse to see it. The role of comparison in self-deception. Another powerful tool of self-deception is comparison. You look at others and say, at least I'm doing better than them. This shifts focus away from your potential to someone else's weakness. But power does not come from being better than average. It comes from being relentless with yourself. Comparing downward comforts the ego while wasting time. Comparing upward, when done honestly, reveals the gap you must close. But that requires humility, and humility is painful to the undisciplined mind. Excuses as strategies against responsibility. An excuse is not a reason, it is a strategy to avoid discomfort, a strategy to avoid judgment, a strategy to avoid accountability. The more intelligent a person is, the more sophisticated their excuses become. They sound logical, they sound thoughtful, they sound deep, but they all serve the same purpose, to delay action. Machiavelli thinking strips excuses down to their function, and when you do that, you see clearly, every excuse protects weakness. The moment self-deception breaks. Self-deception does not break gently. It breaks under pressure. A crisis, a loss, a humiliation, a moment where reality refuses to be ignored. For some, this moment leads to awakening. For others, it leads to bitterness. The difference lies in one question. Will you tell yourself the truth even when it hurts? Truth hurts once. Illusion hurts repeatedly. Self-conquest demands you choose the first pain to avoid the second. How to begin destroying self-deception. You do not destroy self-deception with motivation. You destroy it with evidence. Track your actions, not your intentions. Measure output, not effort. Observe results, not excuses. Ask yourself, what did I actually do today? What did I avoid? Where did I choose comfort over growth? These questions are uncomfortable. That is why they work. A person who cannot face these questions will never conquer themselves. The greatest obstacle between you and power is not the world. It is the story you tell yourself to avoid becoming who you could be. Self-deception is the enemy that smiles while stealing your future. Destroy it, and clarity replaces confusion. This is Truth 001. And now, we approach the stage where self-conquest begins to turn outward.
Power, control, and strategy. Life after self-conquest. There is a clear difference between people who struggle all their lives and those who seem to move through the world with quiet authority. It is not luck. It is not background. It is not even intelligence. It is self-conquest. Once a person has mastered their impulses, emotions, and self-deception, something fundamental changes in how they experience reality. They stop reacting. They start positioning. This is where the philosophy associated with Machiavelli becomes practical rather than theoretical, because power is not about domination for its own sake. It is about control of outcomes. Power begins with self-control. A person who controls themselves moves differently. They speak less, but with purpose. They listen more without rushing to respond. They act after observation, not impulse. This creates a subtle imbalance. Others begin to reveal themselves. They talk too much. They react emotionally. They rush decisions. And the self-controlled individual gains information without exposing weakness. In strategy, information is leverage. You cannot plan effectively if you are constantly exposing your intentions. Self-control turns silence into strength. Strategy is the art of timing. Most people fail not because their goals are wrong, but because their timing is terrible. They act too early out of excitement. They act too late out of fear. They act emotionally instead of strategically. Self-conquest corrects this. A disciplined mind can wait. An emotionally mastered mind can observe. A self-aware mind can adapt. Machiavellian realism emphasizes timing over force. The right move at the wrong time is still a mistake. The person who can wait often wins without conflict. True power rarely announces itself. It does not shout. It does not threaten. It does not beg. It arranges conditions. When you have conquered yourself, you no longer need to convince others emotionally. You stop chasing validation. You stop revealing desperation. This changes how people treat you. They sense independence. They sense composure. They sense that you are not easily moved, and people respect what they cannot control. Influence grows naturally when neediness disappears. Why most people never experience real power? Most people skip self-conquest and try to jump directly to influence. They want respect without discipline, authority without consistency, power without responsibility. But this never lasts. Any influence built on instability collapses under pressure. Without emotional mastery, power corrupts. Without discipline, authority becomes reckless. Without self-awareness, control becomes arrogance. This is why self-conquest must come first. Power amplifies who you already are. If you are unstable, power makes you dangerous. If you are disciplined, power makes you effective.
Strategic thinking versus reactive living. Reactive people live inside events. Strategic people operate above events. Reactors ask, how do I respond to this? Strategists ask, what position does this create? Reactors focus on emotion. Strategists focus on consequence. Self-conquest lifts you out of emotional immediacy and places you in strategic awareness. You begin to see patterns. You anticipate behavior. You recognize cycles. This is not manipulation. This is understanding human nature. Power attracts responsibility. There is a final truth that must be spoken. Power is heavy. It demands restraint. It demands foresight. It demands accountability. This is why many people fear it secretly. Because power removes excuses. Once you have self-mastery, you can no longer blame emotion, circumstance, or confusion. You become responsible for what you build and what you destroy. This responsibility separates leaders from followers. After self-conquest, life no longer feels chaotic. It feels negotiable. Not everything bends to your will, but you are no longer helpless within it. You choose when to act. You choose when to wait. You choose when to speak. You choose when to remain silent. This is not domination. This is command. This is Truth 001. And now we arrive at the final reckoning. The final truth. Conquering yourself to conquer your world. At the end of every philosophy, at the end of every strategy, at the end of every pursuit of power, there is one unavoidable truth. Nothing outside of you matters until what is inside of you is mastered. People search endlessly for secrets. Secrets to success, secrets to wealth, secrets to influence, secrets to power. But the secret was never hidden. It was simply unpopular. Because the hardest thing a human being will ever do is not to fight others, but to fight themselves. This is why thinkers grounded in reality, like Machiavelli, never wasted time on ideal fantasies. They understood that the world does not reward good intentions. It rewards effective individuals, and effectiveness begins with self-conquest. Why the world feels hostile to the unmastered. To an undisciplined mind, the world feels cruel. To an emotionally reactive person, the world feels unfair. To a self-deceived individual, the world feels against them. But the world is not personal. It simply responds. It responds to consistency, clarity, strength, discipline, presence. When you lack these, life feels like resistance. When you develop them, life becomes negotiable. This is not magic. It is alignment. You stop demanding the world adjust to your weakness and begin adjusting yourself to reality. And reality respects strength. The transformation self-conquest creates. Once you conquer yourself, certain things die. You stop needing approval. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop reacting to every provocation. You stop chasing comfort as a lifestyle. And certain things are born. Silence becomes confidence. Patience becomes leverage. Discipline becomes identity. Calm becomes authority. People may not understand you, but they will feel you. They will sense boundaries. They will sense weight. They will sense that you are not easily moved. That sensation is power. Why most people never cross this line? Most people stop just before self-conquest begins. They enjoy the idea of strength, but not the process. They like discipline in theory, but not in practice. They want results, but not responsibility. Self-conquest requires something rare. The willingness to be uncomfortable without complaint. To act without applause. To endure without validation. To grow without announcing it. That is why few make it. And why those who do, stand out without trying. Power is not loud. It is quiet and consistent. The movies lied. Power does not shout. It does not threaten constantly. It does not seek attention. True power is calm. It watches. It waits. It moves precisely. When you have conquered yourself, you no longer need to prove anything. You let results speak. You let time reveal truth. You let consistency expose pretenders. And slowly, the world adjusts to you. The final question you must answer. Before this series ends, there is one question you must face honestly. Not publicly, not for anyone else, but for yourself. Are you willing to live disciplined when no one is watching? Because that is where self-conquest is decided. Not in moments of motivation, not in speeches, not in inspiration, but in quiet choices. When it would be easier to quit, when it would be easier to react, when it would be easier to lie to yourself. Those moments shape your destiny. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your self-control. If you conquer yourself, the world becomes less intimidating. Failure becomes instruction. Pressure becomes sharpening. And power becomes responsibility, not corruption. This is not a promise of ease. It is a promise of control. And control is the foundation of freedom. The world has enough loud people, enough emotional people, enough undisciplined people. What it lacks are individuals who have mastered themselves. If you become one of them, you won't need permission. You won't need validation. You won't need to announce your power. It will be obvious. This is Truth 001.